We're located in the lower level of Jackson Library. Anytime you need support, you can contact us. I'm going to give out a handout with our contact information at the end, which will also give you guys some tips on using Google Sites. Now, the difference between A&T and UNCG, which may make a very big difference about whether or not you want to use Google Sites as an e-portfolio platform, is that we're Google Apps for Education parents, which means our email system is all ran by Google, which allows us the functionality of adding Google Sites and a Google Drive to anything that we do very easily. Now, the session that we have planned is going to all be in Google with the assumption that you have access to or have your own account. If you do have your own account, would you please open it right now so that you can follow along?
Or do you want to share?
Go to your Gmail account. Although the interface between our university accounts and your Gmail account varies slightly, they differ slightly, the functionality is pretty much the same. And in fact, I'm directing you there so you'll always know where to go to launch your Google Sites.
I'm glad you researched that, because that was a lingering question, whether, you know, our whole portal and everything at UNCG was going to align with A&T's.
Well, yeah, that's one of the things I was thinking about when we were talking about this as a session.
But they're not an institutional client?
I don't think A&T is. I know that UNCG is, but
Yeah.
I know as far as an email service, they're not.
Okay.
But if you have your Gmail open, because it's 4 o'clock and you know Gmail just usually times out around 3:30. You're in now? Okay. If you're in your Gmail, you'll recognize this page, your email page. This is the page that you will use to access your Google site. Now there are multiple ways that you can access it. This is the easiest as a frame of reference for you and your students. Now, to access Google Sites and to use it, you're going to need two apps available through Google. You go up here to the apps square, right in the upper right-hand corner. We're going to be using today Google Drive, which is your storage space for all of the documents and materials that you're actually going to display on your Google site. Now, throughout this, I'm going to be mentioning Google Drive and Google Sites, and I may talk about them interchangeably, but they're not the same thing. The best way to think about Google Drive is, as I said, a storage device. Think about it like a portable flash drive. You can Dropbox. You can access it anywhere that you can access your email. This is very important. We'll open this first. Because as you see in mine, I have a ton of documents. Some of them have actually been uploaded to Google Sites. The beautiful thing about Google Sites, or the Google platform, is that it allows collaboration between multiple users. If you upload a document to Google Drive, you and any number of collaborators that you allow can edit that document and send it and share it with whoever you'd like. The second app that we're going to use is, of course, Google Sites. Accessed the very same way. As you can see, I already have several sites that I've made myself. Some of them are test sites. One of them was actually an online class that I created for an independent study, and I'll show that to you later. But there's also one other thing I wanted you to see, which is a site a student created. Oh, this is a test site that we did for the last session that we did with the English department at UNCG. The graduate TAs have been using Google Sites as their e-portfolio platform all year. They've been testing whether or not they're going to standardize it for their TAs, but haven't decided yet. However, what they have found is that this is a very easy tool for our students to access. It also may work for your students because of how easy it is to use. Uploading content is very similar to uploading content to either a Facebook or email. All you need to do in order to edit any site is click this edit button. Then you'll click insert, and it'll give you the option to add images, texts, links, or most important, documents. Now, adding documents is where your Google Drive comes in. You look at this tab right over here. This list of documents that you can add is compatible with anything in Microsoft Office. You can also add video, and you can also add images. The downside to Google Sites, I would say as an educator, is the actual display of the information after. It's very static, and it's customizable, but it's not as flexible as a program like Wix or WordPress, which is something to consider. Here's a finished site that I did. This was for an independent study. It was an opportunity for me as a student to display my work to a professor. There are several different reasons for creating an e-portfolio, but I'm assuming that your students are either going to be showing them to you or to potential employers. If you are creating e-portfolios for classroom use, meaning it's just going to be shared with peers or the instructor, I would say Google Sites is a very good platform to use. If you are using e-portfolios for job interviews or to display your work to a public audience, I probably wouldn't suggest Google Sites. It can work, however, there are other platforms that offer a more vibrant display of you. This is a very good display of everything that I wanted to put on here. However, for me, it doesn't have the visual appeal that most users are looking for when they come to a website. However, it's very functional. If you look, I got a chance to put a lot of different types of information in one space, which was very, very useful. Homepage, I've got an introduction. You can actually upload. What I did with this was upload my document to Google Drive. It's just a text document, and then put it in my Google site so that it could display on page. The beautiful thing about Google Sites is it not only creates a display on the page, it allows the user a link to the document themselves so that they can download it. Now, if you are a professor and you want to mark up a rough draft, this could be a very useful tool for you. If you have students working on a group project and they're supposed to collaborate in order to get it done, Google Sites is probably a very good tool for you to use because each student who contributes, you can track the changes that they make in their documents in Google Drive. Also, it's pretty good for privacy because the share settings are controlled by the person who created the site. If they share it with you, you can see it. They can privatize it so only they can see it. They can privatize it so that only people at A&T can see it. They can privatize it so only people in their group can see it. It's up to them. Also, another weakness that comes from its strength is the fact that every document that they put on page is going to also have to be shared with everybody who they want to see. One of the things I learned by creating my own page was that although I put all these documents on my Google site, all of them couldn't be, although I can see them because I made them, when other users came there who weren't invited, who I didn't initially invite to the site, or each individual page I put on there, I had to re-invite them, which can be very slow and very clunky. Especially if your student's goal is to go use this as a public document, meaning that they're going to give this to potential employers, or put this on their own website, or advertise it as their own website of their work. So that's another thing that you might want to think about. But another good thing that I found out about it is that it allowed me a chance to be creative with what I wanted to do. One thing I got a chance to do was create an e-reserves library. An e-reserves library of all PDFs that allow the user to come to that section and download any of the materials that I wanted them to see. Stuff that probably wasn't practical to put on its own web page, or something that probably didn't fit within the scope of what the conversation was about, but probably could give the user more information on the initial idea.
Are those PDFs also housed on Google Drive?
Yes. Now, but the thing about sites is that you can upload documents directly to your site without putting them on the drive. The difference being that they won't display on the page. They'll display just like this. I'm glad you said that. All of these were uploaded directly to Google Sites. You notice they don't have a display. All they display is a link. When the user who isn't you clicks on the link, there should be a window that pops up just like that, and you'll see the document. Another caveat to Google Sites is that Google has very weird tech issues that sometimes affect the entire system. Meaning, you can load a document one day, and then the next day it doesn't display. Or the next time you try and upload a document, it won't upload right, or it won't display correctly. It's only happened to me 3 times, but it usually only happens when your entire class is there and they're trying to upload everything. So as a professor, and trying to teach people how to make these e-portfolios, know that you're going to have to section out time specifically just to talk about the tech with Google Sites, tech related to Google Sites. I know I'm jumping around, so please, if you have any questions, just shoot them to me, because initially I planned on this being an interactive tutorial. Essentially, everybody doesn't have computers, it's not really practical. But think about any questions that you have related to this as an e-portfolio platform. I've actually taught with this in writing classes, so I can probably answer a lot of questions that you have.
You know, one of the things to think about that Armondo brought up here, that's a very good point with these freeware options, is obviously the last thing we want to do, because we're trying to worry about e-portfolio pedagogy, you know, and at least pedagogy is in our job description. But it may be a good idea in constructing your syllabus, if you're going to use something like this, to just carve out, you know, a class session or something like that where you take your class to the DMC or to your equivalent, because you've got in-house experts as well on this, and just, you know, have the people who are the experts in that area, you know, walk them through, You know, maybe everybody leaves there with a skeletal site, and then, you know, they can get going with actual building the content and learning about, you know, how to select material and evaluate their own work, because that's really what, you know, what our task is, to help students reflect more on their own work and all that.
Well, what we've been doing, well, the way we operate our sessions with the English classes that we've been doing this week is we'll do an in-class session with the entire group and do an overview demo where they actually get hands-on experience with the tool. We show them how to upload documents, how to upload video, how to upload images, how to manage your Google Drive so that it operates effectively with your Google Sites, and how to access both of them from your email. What we do after that is follow-up sessions individually with students for their particular needs. The general overview just shows them where the tool is at and lets them trip over their own mistakes so they know what questions to follow up with. Because everybody usually does have different questions. They generally fall in the finishing touches category, which is, how do I change a theme? How do I organize the information on my document, on my site? Because one thing about Google Sites, one very limiting thing about Google Sites, is all of your pages are going to be ordered alphabetically. So if whatever the document's name or the page's name is going to dictate the order in which it's going to be displayed on the site, which can be very confusing for assignments that aren't given out in alphabetical order. The way that we manage this is telling students to name their pages either A, B, C, and then the title, or 1, 2, 3, and then the title. It gets kind of clunky and kind of wordy, but especially when you hit like 11 or 10 or 11, then you have to figure out another way of systematizing. But that is one of the problems that students run into all the time. They also want to change the color and the display of their site to give it a little more individual feel. You can personalize these to an extent. However, it's not always the easiest thing to do, and even with the changes you own, it really doesn't give off the most vibrant display I've seen on the web. But if you as a professor aren't concerned about the display, you're more concerned with them having a place to house the content and display it to you so that you can collaborate with them, I would say Google Sites is a very good platform for that. Any other questions so far? Would you guys like to see how a site is made?
Yes.
Okay. Good. All right. We're gonna start a Google site from scratch. In order to start a site from scratch, you'll go to the Google Sites homepage, which, as you remember, we accessed from our email address, and you'll click the Create button. Now here is the chance that you have to look at other people's sites. First of all, you're going to name your site. Call this Notice it automatically gives you a URL for the site. You can change this and customize it if you like. Most often, I tell students to create a blank site and just fill in the information. But there's also a gallery of other types of sites. For instance, if you want to do students in education, there's a template for your portfolios. Let's just select that. What I did was select the ePortfolio template. So when I click this create button, eventually I will have this green template with which to fill in information. Another good thing about Google Sites is that it saves automatically everything that you do. So you don't have to continually save your work or worry about your computer crashing and you losing all of the work that you've already completed. I think it saves every 60 seconds, but you can alter the intervals with which it saves. Now, with our blank template, first we are going to insert a document onto this title page. Now, with Google Drive, your title page, your home page can never be removed. Even if you delete it, well, it's not going to let you delete it. Even if you rename it, it can't be deleted, that first page. So whatever you want to display first, make sure it's on that home page. Now the first thing we did was click the edit button, remember, and in order to insert a document, we're going to go over here to insert, go to our drop-down menu, click on drive, and go to documents. Now, any document that has been properly saved to your Google Drive will be displayed right here. Now there's a difference. Not all documents that are in your Google Drive are going to be displayable because they have to be uploaded to Google Drive. You'll know that it's a document that you can use. Oh, right now I'm in Google Drive, just in case everyone needed to know. You'll know a document will be able to be displayed on your Google Drive if it is a square. See this blue square? Green square, that's an Excel document. That is a video, Word document, folder. Certain documents haven't been converted yet. For instance, this PDF. Notice that it opened as a display window, not as a Google document. In order for it to be a Google document, you'd have to go to Google Drive, or document viewer, and then convert it. Scroll down to open with Google Docs. Whenever you convert a PDF to a Google Doc, it has a conversion process that strips the text from the image in the PDF. So what you're going to wind up with, if you had a 2-page document, you're going to have a 4-page document. 2 pages are going to be what the PDF would look like, but it's going to consider those as a picture. The other 2 pages are just going to be the text that was on that PDF, and they're going to be unformatted. It's up to you to decide which one you want and to reformat it correctly if you only choose the text. But back to our site. We're going to take this document that's in our drive, click select. Notice it automatically named it saved the name that was already on the document, and it gives you display options. How big you want the document, how wide you want the document. I usually let it auto format, but you can format it however you want it to. Now, when you initially upload it, you'll see just a gray square. That gray square means the document is there, you just haven't saved it yet. Click the save button. And then you'll see what it's going to look like to your users.
If you could scroll down, that document tells me when I'm supposed to present at that event, so, okay, good. Good, all right.
And notice, like I said earlier, this document automatically comes with its own searchable, downloadable document attached to it. On that very same page, remember I said you can add files directly to Google Drive? At the bottom of every page that you create, there's going to be an Add Files section. Very often, what you're gonna want to do is have a display document and then supplemental materials underneath it. Add Files lets you upload documents from anywhere directly onto your site. Oh, where I don't want to take all of your documents.
Well, you know, the nice thing about this kind of feature is you can, in effect, do pretty much a batch upload.
Yes.
And what's neat, of course, is that students can generate a tremendous amount of raw content quite quickly. You know, that then they can just start organizing and,
Yes.
reformatting and all that. So on the front end, it makes things quicker. I checked also while Armondo was walking us through that. Interestingly, although WordPress does have an Android app, and I imagine, of course, they would have an iTunes app that is fully functional and all that, you know, enables you to edit your site. There is not a Google Sites app for Android, and that's particularly interesting because, I mean, I understand why they wouldn't want one in iTunes because Google hates Apple, right? But, no. Did a search a couple of ways, and all you have some very extensive how-to manuals. But
no.
interestingly enough, it's something to think about in the mobile market. Now, of course, it may be a different story with tablets, but you know, your tablets would be going to the same store. So
Yes. Well, I'm glad you said that because I was thinking about that last week. There is one of the advantages of WordPress over Google Sites that I've noticed is the ability to edit or customize your site for display on mobile devices and tablets. Whereas in Google Sites, whatever you produce is what's going to get displayed. You won't know what the user experience is going to be until the user actually experiences it. And with Google Sites, the display doesn't change dramatically across browsers, but there are slight changes. It works best with the Google browser. With Google as the browser. Firefox tends to have problems. Internet Explorer really, at times they don't agree with one another.
Surprise, Google Sites is optimized for Google Chrome. You know, actually, in searching, I just went ahead and did a web search for, you know, Google Sites help things. There are a whole lot of video tutorials that are intros, particularly for
Yes.
Google Sites.
Yes, we made several, we made one ourselves.
Mhm.
And actually, they're very, very informative. I learned how to use this in part by using those tutorials.
And bear in mind, you're gonna have that embedded in the help resources for the commercial portfolio platforms as well, that type of thing, as well as the face-to-face support. WordPress has a pretty robust help area too, so.
If you want to create another page that isn't already in this particular template, you go to this icon right up here, the plus button. Name your page. You'll have the option of where you want to put it. Normally, I leave it at the top, all new pages at the top level. That means it'll be on the menu bar at the beginning. If you would like, you can put it underneath the page, so it would you wouldn't see the new page that you're doing until you landed on the page that is above it. For instance, if I put it underneath our title page. And this is if you use Google Sites, this is a problem your students are going to run into. They're going to create pages and they wind up being placed in the wrong area. Meaning, this page 2 is actually, you can only access it from the title page.
Okay, that's
See, way at the bottom it says subpages. The reason I advise my students not to create subpages is because they're hard to see. And what they tend to do is think they lost some information that they made. You see how small it's displayed?
That's how, so that's automatically the access point that it creates for subpages? You don't have
Yes.
control of it, wow.
This is why we don't really like
So-
subpages.
So you actually, that's interesting because in other site building tools, basically you can custom design what amounts to, internal link on your own web page, and you can do whatever you want. I mean, you can have a, gigantic, half-page graphic or text or whatever, but.
Now, there are other ways in Google Sites to get around that. If you wanted to create a prominent display, you can create a text box with texts directing them there and then link it to the other pages.
Yeah.
But if you're just relying on Google Sites to do what it does, that's what's gonna happen.
Interesting. Huh.
What we're gonna do right now is just add an image to this particular page, and then I'm gonna show you how to put it back on the top, because that's a very common problem that students have. Adding images and video is essentially the same technique that you would use to add a document, except you're not using, more often than not, you're not using your Google Drive, especially for images. Video, depending on where you're uploading it from, yes. Click Insert, click Image, find your image. Good thing about Google Sites is it allows you to retrieve images two ways. One, directly from a file, uploading it like you would to your email account or Facebook, or you can search the web for the URL to an image. We'll do the simple uploading of images. Well, I hope you have a test copy of something.
Oh yeah. You do my cats, kitties, yeah.
Which ones?
Kitty folder up there.
We just passed it.
I just passed it.
No.
Oh,
Yeah, there you go. Because, if you're online, you gotta look at cats.
who can resist a ball of
Oh.
Elvis?
Oh, yes. Yes, he had a bad day yesterday, had to go to bed, so.
Click OK. Now,
Sizing.
yes,
Oh my God.
just like your documents, you can resize anything that you upload. What you do, click on the image. When you click on the image, this toolbar will come up. This will allow you to change the URL of the image, reposition it, or to resize it. Right now it's at its original size, which is way too large to display on Google Sites. So I would say, let's try medium.
It's the actual size of the cat.
There he goes, now he's functioning. Unlike your documents, you can see your images without them being saved, so don't let it be fooled, or don't be fooled. Make sure you always click this save button up in the left-hand corner, or the right-hand corner, excuse me.
What's kind of nice about this, it is kind of like, image uploading for dummies in the sense that it kind of has this pre-designed small, medium, large, and all that. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing for what we're looking at, how many people really can accurately scale, let's see how many pixels do our,
Well,
on.
The thing that I found useful about this is its ease, because it's easy for me to teach students the tech part of it, and it's easy for them to learn the tech part. Also, the troubleshooting that you're going to have to do as a professor is pretty simple because there's not a lot that you can do in Google Sites, or that your students are going to need to do. If you can make a basic site yourself, you should be able to teach them how to make a basic site for themselves. That was my teaching experience. I'm not sure everybody's. It's gonna be like.
We'll
What?
just link out to that, kind of course site that you made and tell students that's our model. Is that now just that template that you've got there, that's the ePortfolio template, right?
That's not the only one. I think there are
Okay.
3 others.
Okay.
And you can also search a database of Google Sites that have been made public to see what other people have done with their e-portfolios. Oh, one other thing that I wanted to show you guys, because remember we made this a subpage? One of the common problems people have is accidentally creating subpages and thinking that they lost their information because they can't find it. In order to edit this, so that we don't have to do a new page all over, is go to Settings, then go to Manage Site. Did that wrong. Excuse me, guys.
With the pages? Yeah.
Now, in order to get title page 2 where it should be, drag it all the way to the top, underneath title. You'll know because you'll see moving in parentheses, but bam. What happened? What's this page? Well, it's no longer on this page.
Oh, you did put it up at the top?
It's actually supposed to be in this group of headers.
That's what I thought.
What it could be, see, this is one of the weird.
Time number 4.
Yeah, the weird tech problems that arise with Google Sites. One of 2 things has happened. Either there's no room to display it on the template that we selected, or the change just isn't showing up yet. It's still there.
I wonder if you moved it higher on the list,
That's the thing.
because it may be thinking that it's got like 30 tabs on there. Like if you moved
It automatically moves everything
Oh, right.
into alphabetical order.
You could do a page. Can you rename pages from the pages management screen?
Yes. Well, you actually have to go on a particular page to rename it. it becomes a very big problem after a while, if you don't take that into consideration when you initially start to set up the pages.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of the e-portfolio construction for the students is kind of, you know, part of the educational experience is strategizing how to structure it, to display their work, so that it shows kind of the progress of their learning. So I guess we just assume that their learning is alphabetical.
Well, one thing that I did to keep it straight in my mind what was going on is have them numbered 1, 2, 3, like in order of the assignments. I had them put their final draft as the display page and their rough drafts as sub-pages underneath that main page. That's just one way you could possibly have it. We only have like 10 minutes left, right?
Yeah.
But I'd like a little dialogue or questions. I'm pretty sure there are some that you have. It doesn't even have to be related to Google Sites. It could just be e-portfolios in general. Because I know that all of us are going to have to use them at some point.
Now, you taught an undergraduate course where you required e-portfolios, right?
Yes.
I'd like to make a request that's gonna help all of us out, since your experience with doing some of this. If you could, share with me, and I can pop it on our Blackboard site, just in time for us to switch to the LMS, I'm sure. But, some of your, like, assignment guidelines and things like that, that dealt with, e-portfolio component, like, what we're particularly looking for is clear instructions that kind of guide students through, okay, I want you to structure your portfolio this way, or, you know, here's what I want to see from this assignment in your e-portfolio, or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
That'd be really useful.
Yeah. I'll also send a link to a very good portfolio one of my students did and made public. So, yeah, with the understanding that it may be shared with other people. So, it'll be good to see how a student actually created a site.
Since most of our writing classes aren't like in computer labs, and you know, some of our students bring laptops, some don't. How did you get them acclimated to the whole process before? You know,
I did it too. Well, I was doing this at a community college, RCC, in Concord. The first class that I did it, we didn't have computers. And it was very slow, very painful, trying to teach this without them being able to have hands-on experience with it. What I wound up having to do, and this took way too much time, is during each new module, I would have a student come up and run the tech for me while I explained it to them, so they got some hands-on experience in class. The better way of doing it, I found, was to have a class that actually had PCs in it, so they could learn and make mistakes in front of me, so I can troubleshoot that while we're talking about writing. It was a much easier process, but undoubtedly with the shakiness of money at our institution, I would say that that's more than likely not feasible. But all or most of your students have access to laptops that they could bring to class. Even if you don't have them do it every day, you could also, I know our library here lets students check out laptops, require them to bring a laptop to class. If you don't have a laptop, you have access to one in the library that you could bring to class, because we're going to be working with tech today. Any other questions? Is there anything that I didn't cover that people were wondering about? Oh, also, I have handouts. These are the Google Sites handouts that we give our patrons. Okay. You probably already had 7 of these. Thank you. They give a general overview of how to set up a site and how to troubleshoot common problems, and our contact information is on the back.
With a very perplexed looking Steve Grover.
That was when we were first starting the DMC. Trust me, that was a genuine look.
Yeah, I started to say, I think he kept that look for the better part of a year.
Yeah. Well, thank you all. Please, let me know if you have any questions.
Very helpful. And of course, the key as we